Hello. Don't California my Texas. This was once said by the Texas governor. The Californian example is perfect when it comes to describe how a community might get so polarized. So let's bear with me. We have general elections, but when everybody knows, or the vast majority thinks that the election is already decided. So when it comes to California, everybody knows that the Democrats are just going to win. End of the story. There's nothing else to be added. So then the Republicans are not going to present any real candidate because they don't want to waste their time, their resources. So everybody knows that the Dems are going to win. But then who is the candidate that it's going to become the ones presented at the general election and de facto the winner of it? Primaries. But the problem with primaries is that just the most active part of the base, it's involved, the extremists. So in order for a candidate to be selected through the primaries, this person must comply, cope, represent those very extreme instances. And then once this person gets elected, he or she starts to act accordingly, even though we know that the general public is not really represented. And this is a problem. And it's a problem not only because in a democracy you should have the majority represented, and with such kind of method, just the minority, a very small minority, is represented. But it's also a problem because if everybody knows that the elections is unquestionable, we all know that it always been the same and it will stay the same forever, well then you lose the check and balances. So California has been run by Democrats essentially for forever. It was, we all remember about Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was Republican, but it was just good enough and to immediately take this opportunity. But in principle, California it's always been led by Democrats in the last decades, and nobody had really nothing against that. And that's why you find this place, in chaos with the homeless, gentrification. The school system is a mess. The gentrification phenomena, which, by the way, is the one for which, at a certain point, the prices of living in a specific area become so high that the normal guy cannot really afford it anymore, and that's why you might have super commuters spending even 6 hours a day to reach out places like San Francisco in and out. So now let's go for some example of what might happen when you don't have any check and balance. Homeless. Okay, so somebody proposed to create some shelters, but since they are very woke, very left wing, they say, no, people need home. I like that. So are we gonna create homes? No, because we don't want to destroy our house market, because we want to protect our workers. In other words, since you bought your house for an astonishing amount of money, you don't want to start, building new houses, because otherwise the price might fall down. And honestly speaking, in some communities, you don't want to have anybody else, because in the States, so in California, you can attend to the school that it's within your district. So it's really based on where you live. So you don't want to have other guys dropping down the quality of your school and so on. So you don't want to build up anything new. Okay, and there is a third point when it comes to California, and more in general the States, is that we as Europeans don't really know how many public representatives get elected directly. Because we in Europe, more or less, we have the politicians at different levels, and more or less that's it. But in the States, you have the general attorney, you have the police chief, and the list goes on. So many and several different public servants elected directly by election. But again, you're gonna find yourself in the very same problem. The general public is not really represented, just the minority, and this is gets in a sort of endless deadly loop, finding all these extreme people all around, scattered across the different roles. And this is why you might find cases like, in the recent past, when the school advisors in a specific district in California have been appointed with an astonishing 80% of the consensus. But right after 1 year, the school advisors have been kicked off with a consensus of 70%. And this might look crazy, but it's not so crazy when you think of the fact that the election is really about winning the small minority of the population. But then when the general population understands that a specific candidate is not really capable of doing his job, well, then the general population activates itself in order to remove it. And this is also something very, very American. More or less is about don't wasting our time, don't bothering about politics as long as politics work. But then when you start realizing that politics is not really working anymore, you step in, more or less you kick everybody off, and then you step back, don't willing to take part of the public thing anymore. So it's a little bit, like a schizophrenia. So the major points here were general elections are typically set, and this is really the case of California, based on a small minority. And why? Because the small minority is the one who decides who's going to win the primaries. And after that, it's just, downhill. Second, not having any check and balance for a very long period of time. It's not true that just leads to better policies because you can plan for the future. The other way around, you're going to go for very poor quality because there's nobody questioning what you're doing, so just do it. Third, and this is really true for the US, in a place where you have so many elected public representatives, and based on the fact that everybody is gonna be selected more or less based on the same criteria, so primaries and just the more active part of the population, you're gonna find yourself in a deadly loop, even fostering further this kind of extremism. And this is why the Texas governor, just based on the fact that many Californians are fleeing California just to seek for a better place, a place where you can afford a home, where you can pay less taxes and so on, so a little bit better organized, and they are fleeing to Texas. Well, then the Texas governor said, "Don't California, my Texas." I hope that you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching till this point. And as usual, take care and see you next time. Bye.